Set that up. All right. Okay. Thank you, Theo, for reminding us about that. So why don't we just begin by having, and Tracy, maybe we can pull the slide off the screen, start by introducing each of our panelists. So let's start with Aaliyah. Would you mind being our first panelist? So just for this first round, if folks can just introduce yourselves, what kind of work you do in the field of education, maybe a little bit about your history in that work. And we'll just start with like a brief introduction, and then I'll present our first round of questions.
Rename, صح?
Sure. I think somebody's not muted, but my name is Aaliyah Dunn Salahuddin. I actually went to school in San Francisco Unified School District my whole life. So that's really where my journey began. I eventually, after graduating from San Francisco State, and most importantly, City College of San Francisco, because that's a big part of the story, I worked at City College of San Francisco in the history department and in African American studies for many years, actually doing a lot of important work, really inspired by the fact that I was once a student at City College and really trying to do the same that a lot of my, professors and instructors there did for me. And in teaching history, I realized that there wasn't history about the Black experience in San Francisco or the Bay Area or in the West for that matter, really written. So through researching with my students and hearing more about them, I've decided to go on to pursue a doctorate to actually write the history. And so now I support classrooms in education through creating material, doing panels like this, and really just trying to generate history so that there can be material in the classroom for people to teach. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Thank you.
All right, Gerald, can you go next?
Good morning. I'm Gerald Robinson. I work at Charles Drew Elementary School. I'm a para there. I've been involved with the school. This would be my 14th year. How I got involved, basically from my mom, from my parents. It's kind of been embedded in me since a young child. Some of the work that I do, I basically do just based on experience. I try to give experience to some of the children, some of the students that I get involved with, share some of the knowledge that I have, just share some of the leadership qualities that I may have or that I can share with them. Just being a listening ear, just being connected with my community, and a lot of it being connected through sports. So a lot of my educational experience is really connected through sports, if I'm going to be honest about it. And through sports, I feel like a lot of those qualities goes through in life, you can use through in life, that's actually helped me be where I am right now. And that's pursuing an educational career. So.
Thank you so much. Becca, you can go next.
Yeah, my name's Becca Rosso Marsh, and I teach at Coliseum College Prep Academy in East Oakland. I've been there, this is my 12th year, I think 11th or 12th year. And I teach 11th and 12th grade humanities, and I've been doing that for the last 8 years or so. And I also have a 4th grader who goes to school a couple blocks from our school at Greenleaf. And I think I came to teaching for a bunch of reasons. I was working at a rape crisis center before then and felt a need to shift the way I was working with young people in order to have it be sustainable for me and be able to contribute long-term and be somewhere for a long time in the way I wanted to be. And I think for me, it was trying to have a place where I could work that was a balance between creating spaces of joy and celebration and fun and laughter, and also knowing that schools are places where we're able to have collective struggle and work between students and parents and teachers to have transformation in our classrooms and to contribute to bigger transformation in the world.
Sure. Becca's also being humble, everybody. She basically helps to run our school. She's an incredible activist and organizer and like pushing amazing policies to improve education across our district. So just want to put that out there. It's like a big part of what makes you amazing, Becca. So just sorry, have to embarrass you a little bit. All right, Carlos.
Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is Carlos Rangel, and this is my third year being a teacher, like being in the front of the classroom as a leader teacher. I currently work at Coliseum College Prep Academy, which is also the high school from where I graduated from. I teach high school students. I teach 11th and 12th graders. I teach statistics and geometry. Prior to me being the lead teacher, during the pandemic, I was an assistant teacher for statistics. And that's kind of like how my first year of teaching happened through Zoom and through, the hard times. But I think that after I graduated from high school, like when I was in high school, I had great teachers that started to mold the way that I think about just how education is run and just our society. I was an intern at 67 Sueños. And so then carrying that on until like when I went to college, I saw the differences in the system, and I met great people who supported me in being able to be successful in mathematics at the college level. And I just saw the type of like level that our students need to achieve in order to be successful within that system. And so I wanted to come back to my community and support. And having a background in Chicano studies and mathematics, I wanted to mold those two things together in support of like being able to support our youth, our Black and brown students specifically, to find themselves within the space of the math, find themselves within the math system and be able to understand that this is just a system that has is structured by other people, but we belong in these spaces, and I just want to have my students feel like they belong and feel like they can succeed. So that's kind of like my main goal when I'm in the classroom.
Beautiful. And then I should have done this at the beginning, but I also want to introduce the co-host and co-conspirator, Tracy Burt, who is also the coordinator of this whole conference that we've all been learning from and inspired from all week long. Tracy does so much to make this happen, really holds it all. And so Tracy is going to be co-hosting this panel. Do you want to introduce yourself and say a little something about yourself, Tracy?
Oh, sure. Thanks, Jerica. And Jerica's always she's one of the most humble people I know. She does amazing work in all these different ways. Students are always coming to me saying how amazing her work is at City College. And then she does so much activism work, and you're always inspiring me, Jerica. So thank you. And so, yeah, I've been at City College for about 20 years. I love teaching. I started as a preschool teacher. I worked in domestic violence prevention for a few years after that. And I just think like the opportunity to transform ourselves and transform the education system is really exciting. And I love working with people like Aaliyah and Gerald in different ways. And Becca, I think I've met you before, and Carlos, I'm not sure I've met you. It's exciting to me. All right, I cannot control my dogs, unfortunately. Jerica, do you mind doing the next question?
Yeah, for sure. So our panelists already kind of got into a little bit about their background and how they got into the work. And so I'm wondering if there's anything else you want to share about that. But also, I think one of the things that we're in a crisis right now in our field. We can't fill teaching positions, right? People aren't coming to the work. because it's very challenging work and we're not doing enough to support people. We're not doing enough to support families and students and communities so that the work is sustainable and joyful and rich in the ways that we know it can be. But each of you has dedicated a significant amount of your life to this work. And so I'm wondering if, kind of looping back to this question of purpose, your purpose in the work, how have you sustained it? What is the thing that keeps you going, the spark for you? Because I think that in this very difficult moment, we all need to be like feeding each other, right? And what considerations do you have that you bring forward in the work that has kept you going? And maybe we can do the same order if that's okay, starting with Aaliyah.
Sure. So I think this is a really important question because, even choosing to teach history or the social sciences or to choose sort of the arts or dance or I'm also a dance and performance artist as well. People are like, you're not going to make money that way. How are you going to make money? How are you going to survive? So I think it really came down to me realizing that, if I follow my intuition, I've always known I was going to be a teacher because, I have 4 sisters. We grew up in Hunters Point and in the Fillmore and just around San Francisco and in different spaces. So in some way or the other, I was always teaching my little sisters how to do certain things. Other parents in the neighborhood would say, hang out with them. We would go to the library. We would do our homework together. So it was always sort of facilitating, like, the young people are, a year or 2 younger than me. And I think there was a point when I was, 10 or 11 years old, when I found out you can go to college, you can actually go live somewhere. And so for me as a young person, that was a transformative moment, even though I never actually lived in the dorm and never got to live my different world fantasy that I was watching on TV. I still was like, okay, this is going to be a way to this is something I'm good at. Schools were places that, I was a different sort of world for me to kind of escape a lot of the things I was having to experience at home and in my community. And so I think I was called to it because I realized, and I saw the injustice in the classroom as a student. I saw it perpetuated in college, and really realizing that this is something that I can do, and this is somewhere I can make a difference, because there were so many people who, if they hadn't made a difference in my life in that sort of K through 12 and then community college, 6 years at community college, and then 2 years in my master's program, there were always people along the way that helped to, so it's always interesting to me to see Stanford PhD candidate, because people just assume a lot of things with that name and that brand. But I have very humble beginnings, and, part of what I think is important in realizing is that if you are called and you have a purpose, the universe, you will be provided with the tools that you need to sustain yourself. I really believe that, so I've been able to sort of chart my own pathway and find support. And I get energized by hearing back from the students, some of which I'm meeting with today, right? Years later, who are still trying to make changes in their life. So I'm always inspired by people, the students that I help, seeing them grow, and having the privilege to learn from them, but also from my own story. Like, if it wasn't for people who chose to make the same choice that I'm making now with my career, I don't know where I would be.
Gerald, thank you so much, Aaliyah.
That was tough to follow. That's tough to follow, Aaliyah. Well, I feel like this kind of chose me. I didn't have any plans on getting into education, anything like that. Granted that my mom worked at a Boys and Girls Club growing up. Even did some work at my school. I went to Bret Harte Elementary School, so I came up in the San Francisco Unified School District. I had an opportunity to join the SMART program. One of the first candidates to graduate from the SMART program. So just going through that and having the different opportunities, like I said, I think it just kind of chose me. I fell into this, I kind of joined a basketball camp, Michael Garza basketball camp, working with children. I did it for 6 weeks for a summer job. And it was just getting all the feedback, like why I'm not doing this or why I'm not coaching or why I'm not doing that. So it kind of led me to Charles Drew. And I was hired by tenacious Rice Mitchell. She gave me my opportunity. Being there, I was also able just to inspire and just to share some of the experiences that I had growing up, or give some of the experiences or knowledge that I know. It just kind of drove me here. I've been doing it for a couple years now, and like you said, Aaliyah, it's the motivation that comes with it is just seeing the kids that you work with, being successful. That's the motivation that keeps me going with it. That's the I guess water that keeps my glass full. Just to see just to see. I work in elementary, so just to see them go from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade, and some of them be college students, and they come back and visit. And sometimes like right now, I might be the only person that they remember from their childhood at the school, and it just to be presented with Mr. Robinson. I remember doing this. I remember doing that. And like I said, I'm big on experiences. I feel like experiences create knowledge. And when you, sharing it with people, you inspired it to share with other people. And the biggest thing is I'm working in my community that I grew up in, Baby Hunters Point. And I mean, it's a proud feeling. It's a very proud feeling. It's almost like family just to watch them grow. And some of their parents, I went to school with, high school with, grew up with. So it just makes that connection a little more deeper, and it makes my care a little bit more deeper. I feel like that's been my purpose, and I'm just fulfilling my purpose more. I know I'm probably a late start to taking classes and getting more involved and just taking it for what it is. I feel like it really is my calling just to share some of my knowledge and information. So.
Thank you, Gerald. Shout out to going back and serving your community for sure. All right. So Becca and Carlos will go in that order. So what inspires you to stay going in this work? What sense of purpose guides you?
There's a lot to say on this question. I've been thinking a lot about recently kind of what we can do within the classroom, but then also as teachers and as educators, what is the work that we end up doing outside of the classroom also. And I've been just thinking about that a lot in the 11 years that I've been at CCPA, that there's the purpose of the relationships with the students and these long-standing relationships with family members where you know, like I've gotten the opportunity to know a family over 12 or 13 years and taught maybe 3 or 4 of their siblings, and just having those like deep, long-standing relationships of trust. And so that's one piece within the school. And then I've also been thinking about there's just in education, we're under attack in all these different ways. And so while being at CCPA, you know, we've had to fight to keep adult education classes. We've gone on strike multiple times to try to make it at all sustainable for teachers to stay in Oakland. Right now, me and Miss Coffey get to work with, or don't, I mean, are forced to and get the privilege to work with students right now around, you know, calling for a ceasefire in Palestine. And there's ways that just, you know, the world keeps on happening outside our classrooms, and there's what we can do within our spaces. And then we have to, you know, as educators, we have to engage in whatever else is coming at our students and coming at us. And so I think that my purpose has always been both. Like, it's never just been to be in my classroom and create, you know, and work through our curriculum. That's part of it, and that's a lot of what keeps me going. But the other part of it is just the ways that I've gotten to work with staff, with parents, with students, to fight for a ceasefire, to fight for adult education, to fight for bilingual education at our schools and access to learning our home languages, to fight for decent salaries, to fight for smaller class sizes. Like the work, it has always been both. And it's exhausting because just trying to be a good teacher is exhausting. And some of us are parents on top of that, and that's exhausting. But I think just trying to find a way to also be part of greater movements for justice, because if not, you can feel, it can feel isolating sometimes, and it can feel like the impact that you're able to have is so limited. So yeah, just trying to hold all pieces of that.
Thank you, Tracy. Sorry, thank you, Becca. Carlos?
Yes. Well, I think that everyone has said something that's like just also touched me, and then just hearing you guys' experiences, and it made me think about like my own experience, and just like I thought about all the things that education has done for me. As an undocumented person here, you know, I see how it has changed and like shifted my life. I think that because of education, I got to experience a bunch of different things. You know, like able to travel to Cambodia, able to get an education and go and help and support folks out in Puerto Rico when the Huracán Maria came through, and just being able to meet all the great people that I met through my educational career has like definitely shaped the reason why I'm an educator today. I don't think that I always wanted to be an educator. Even up until when I was in college, I was like, I don't even know if education is for me, to be honest. Like, I think that coming here, you think that you want to go and just, you want to go to college and be an engineer. That's the thing that they like fed me, or like I consumed, right? Like I chose to consume, like, okay, I'm gonna go and be an engineer, get this degree to make money, right? Because that's like what like motivated me as a young adult. You know, I was like, I need money, I need to make money to help support my family. um but I always came back to education. Like, just my mentors were educators. The experiences and the people that I connected with more were people who were in the education field. Just being able to have a community, a sense of community, has always felt like an important factor for me and for my life. And just having experienced everything that I've experienced, I can think about whenever I stand in front of my students and I see them like staring at me and like, or listening and paying attention to what I'm saying, I think about that this is my community, and they could have, if I was younger, or if I could born in a different time, like they would have been my peers, because I literally sat in the same room that I currently teach in. Like those same old chairs are staying there. So I see a lot of like the I see a lot of resemblance to things. So whenever they're like goofing around or playing around, like I just redirect that energy, but I understand that like I would have done something like how what they're doing, because well, sitting down in a space for hours and hours and just all the things that go on in a teenager mind is everything's happening too fast and everything's happening at the same time. And so I think that that continues to motivate me to, because I want my students to experience different things like how I experience. I want them to travel the world. I want them to see more than just Oakland. I want them to be able to say that they've like experienced different things, and every day of their life they learn something new. I think that that's what something I want to put into their head, into their minds, is that you just got to want to have the curiosity of learning. And there are doors that are going to be there because of some system that has been established by white supremacy and patriarchy and all these other isms that they can't control, but they belong in those spaces, and you just have to want it and continue to you know, not forget of who they are. I think that that's very important, and a thing that I want them to carry with themselves. Like I teach in East Oakland, and I see the East Oakland mentality with what is there to be like. Within all the negatives, there's also positive things, like the wanting to hustle and make it, right? Like hustle within the education system, like get the money from the system, like, right? Like there's, what I tell them is like, just apply to scholarships, want it. Like you want to hustle, you can hustle within this like structured system. And you can go to college and not have to pay, right? Like you can get an education, but you gotta want it, and never forget who you are, where you come from, and remember to check in back in with your community, because you know it takes a village. It really does.
Thank you all. It's really amazing to hear all your different journeys and how you came to teaching in different ways, whether you knew from the beginning or whether you found your way to teaching. I feel like I was in the found your way category, and it's just such a rewarding career. And yeah, so it is rewarding and it is challenging. And in that vein, like, what advice do you have for aspiring teachers?
Should I go?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I just follow in the same order. Real quick, I think this is connected to the question that you just asked, Tracy, going back to purpose, because I think the purpose and advice are connected. As an African-American, you know, I feel like, and then just hearing, Gerald, your story, not just the geographic connection to Hunter's Point, but going, this idea of visiting back, sometimes going back to these communities, oftentimes these places of trauma, right? We're taught that success is to leave. You get successful, you leave, you move on. But I would say that I know for a fact that if I hadn't gone back to teach at City College of San Francisco, the place that you know, essentially is where I was able to hone in on my skills and to hone in on my practice as a teacher, as a scholar, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I think that it's important for us to realize, as aspiring teachers, as current teachers, that teaching and teachers have historically, particularly within this country, have always been activists or are connected to forms of abolitionism, right? So as an African-American person, teaching was an act of abolitionism. Teaching was how we uplifted our people, particularly after slavery ended. It was about teaching people how to engage and free the shackles, not just the physical ones, but the ones inside. And what's so deep about what you said, Carlos, too, is that, like, our students don't have the ability to dream, you know, they don't, their worldview is limited by these segregated geographies in the city. And so my advice, part of my advice is, if you're, you know, if you're coming to teaching thinking, looking at, oh, this is how much I'm going to get paid, then, you know, I feel like there are a lot of people who would get involved in teaching because it's a job, it's something that they can do. And if that's your motivation, then it's not the career for you, right? Because I feel like the wealth and the resources come when you actually are there driven by a higher purpose to help elevate the people around you and the community around you. And the community, the students, the people, they will provide the grants, the scholarships, things will come. So I have that really deep knowledge and or sort of intuitive sense. But I would say, and the question was advice, right? Or was that the question, Tracy? Advice I would give is to follow what you believe, and to, you know, if you want to see change in the classroom or in the lesson or in the curriculum, try to create it so that you can, even if it's small. I just got back from Kingston, Jamaica, and that was the Edna Manley College for the Creative, Performing, and Visual Arts. And that's a school that doesn't have a lot of resources. And oftentimes I visit schools that don't have a lot of resources, but the students are producing and doing work that could easily just be put on right now in any circuit. And I think oftentimes in the United States, in a country driven by a capitalist sort of ethos, we think we need money, we need resources to create change, when really it's just about having, one, to me, a sense of humanity and empathy. If I'm talking to students, I treat them like human beings. I'll get down on the level, eye to eye. I'm not going to assume anything about them, and I talk to them as people. I think that's one, right? Two, I think the advice from there was to realize that you can't control them. It's not your job to save anybody, but I can empower somebody to try to make decisions for themselves that work for them, that work for their families, that work for their communities, because these students are dealing with a whole lot. And maybe it's not going to be a college degree for some person, but if I empower them with tools to maybe think about their own business or how to get their album started, right? That's what it's all about for me. And I think lastly, the advice I would give is to, think about what legacy you want to leave. If your goal is to have a lot of money and to have a house and to have all these things, okay, cool, be an engineer, do something like that. But I've met so many people in life, particularly at this very, elitist institution, Stanford University, where they'll reach those goals. They'll have all those things and they still won't be fulfilled. So what does success look like to you? And what is going to be your purpose in life, right? I feel like you don't have to choose. So for me, that would be my advice, is to really think about what legacy you want to leave, and what imprint you want to leave. And that in the act of teaching, you are actually a part of this long legacy of activists and abolitionists who have been uplifting the community through the attainment of knowledge.
The advice I give an aspiring teacher is follow your purpose. My personal advice I would give is kind of like go to your community. I feel like it's a little bit more, you're a little more driven. You have a little more care. You have a little more empathy. Like you said, I think if that's what if you're aspiring to be a teacher, I think the best way probably is to go to your community and try to empower those students or those kids, like you said, Aaliyah. That's basically what I do. And another thing I wanted to add to the challenging thing is not only just the money and stuff like that, the capitalist of the situation, but just competing with technology now and all the different things that comes with YouTube, and you can do this and you can do that, get rich, and you don't have to go to school, or you don't have to educate yourself, or you don't have to take those same paths that was given to us. That's the challenge sometimes, because some kids get entitled. They feel entitled and they're not as encouraged to do some of the work, or put in some of the work to earn some of the things that you have to earn. That's what I wanted to add to as being challenging. Not only that, and as being parents, as teachers. For me personally, the most challenging thing is me pouring into students, and when I get home, I don't have as much energy to pour into my own children. And sometimes I battle that. Sometimes that'd be my challenge. And I'm still kind of finding the balance, because I have a 5th grade student, a daughter, and I have a 9th grade son, high school, and we all know high school is different than elementary school. And just sometimes feeling like I'm pouring into others and not pouring into mine sometimes is my challenge. So I just wanted to put that out there. But I'm finding ways to have a balance and not let it, I guess, want to say, beat me up so much about it, because it is encouraging sometimes when those kids that I do work with and my own children are doing well, then sometimes it's all worth it. So back to what advice I would give an aspiring teacher is kind of like go somewhere where you can really connect, because sometimes the biggest thing as being teachers is going to a school where you really don't have a connection with, or you don't really have an understanding with it. And sometimes kids can catch on to that. And once you lose the respect factor of that, it's kind of like an uphill battle. So try to find out what these kids like: SpongeBob, Bakugans, not just the sports aspect of it, or not even just the entertainment aspect of it. Just maybe even some of the language or the terms that they may use, because there's a lot of text messaging that they do nowadays opposed to writing. So LOL, of course we know what that is now, but all these extra ones that they come with, if you can connect with them like that, I think the connection with the family grows as well. Like if your kid going home and talking about what they learned with you or learned at school, sometimes the parent want to know, who is this person that my child is talking about. And why is my child talking about this person? And sometimes that brings an invitation to parents to, just to get to know who they are. And sometimes when you get to know who they are, you become part of the family. And I'm speaking from a point of view of being at Charles Drew. That's the only school that I've been at right now. Granted, it's been in the community that I grew up in, but it's just feel family oriented. So if I'm gonna give you advice, go ahead and do your purpose and just try to find somewhere where you can connect and grow.
Thank you so much, Gerald, for that. That was amazing.
Thank you.
I think, let me know if my internet's not working. Write me in the chat, but it's okay for now. Okay. It was telling me unstable internet. I think a few things in terms of advice. One, I feel like I've been so blessed with my coworkers that I've had over the years. I've had just people who both supported me and challenged me. And I think finding a place where you have respect with other coworkers, where they don't let you, like, we all need to grow. And as teachers, we need to be able to reflect on our practice and continue getting better. And it's hard to do that in isolation, to continue looking at your curriculum or looking at your relationships with students and knowing that you can get better and pushing yourself to get better. And we can do that ourselves, but if you have other people that you're working with that you have mutual respect with, that will push you and that will support you, I think that's how any growth I've had as an educator, as an activist, as an organizer, has come from having incredible people around me that are both supporting me and pushing me. And if I need to be called out on something, they can do that in, coming from a place of love for me, and more importantly, love for our students and for the community that we're working with. And so I feel like advice, finding a place, and it doesn't have to be everyone on staff. It's not going to be everyone on staff. As long as you have your core people and they're with you, and not in a like, I'm always going to tell you how amazing you are and that's it. Someone who can like show you both sides, who can tell you the truth about yourself too. I think that has been core to me. And I'm really lucky that Miss Coffee over here is one of my people that does that for me, and I feel so blessed by. And Chayla Delgado was my work wife for a long time, and she pushed me and like built me into the educator I am in so many ways. And it's the logistical things of like, can you help me out with copies at 7:55 a.m. on a Monday? And then it's also like, I'm having this real challenging situation with a family or with a student, and I don't know if I'm doing my best work here. And someone who can talk through that with you. So I think that, and it's not easy to find, but finding that, and once you find that, it's just like hold on to it and nurture it and appreciate those relationships. So I think that's one piece of advice that I had. The other one was around connecting with families. I think being a mama changed the ways that I worked as a teacher, and just thinking about like pretty much all the time, I would want to know what's going on with my child. And pretty much all the time, parents want to know what's going on with their kids. And I think often there are teachers who, maybe are scared to talk to families, or maybe just feel kind of lazy about getting on the phone and talking to families, or for all of the reasons that teachers sometimes are hesitant around connecting with families. And maybe it could be their internalized bias, sometimes like it's a language barrier. For whatever reasons, you got to push past that. Like having relationships with kids, family members is core, and always assuming that families want to know about their children, because they do, because they love their children, they want to support their children. So I think that's another piece of advice, like always send the text or make the call or invite the family member in or do the home visit, whatever it is. I think that's so key, and it shows it shows our respect for family members anytime that we're like, no, I'm not going to call, or I don't know if they'd want to know. Like, that's such a, to me, feels like such a disrespect for the way that families want to show up for their kids. So that's my other piece of advice: always connect with family members. I teach 11th and 12th graders, so like they think that they're grown most of the time. They're like, you don't need to talk to my mom, and it's like, actually your mom still cares a lot about you and wants to know what's going on with you. And ultimately, like, kids for the most part want their still need their families and want their families when they're 16, 17, 18 years old. And the last piece of advice that I was thinking about is you know, once you've found a school that you're going to be at for a long time, like really taking responsibility for what that school is like. Like, even if we're teachers, I never want to be a principal, I never want to be an administrator, but as teachers, we have a lot of control over our school. And so if you're frustrated with a policy, if you think that there's a way that students are being done wrong in a specific situation, like, you can't just stick to your classroom. We got to fight for those bigger fights, and teachers do have a lot of power in schools. And so just continuing to take responsibility, not just for your classroom, but for whatever other forms of justice that you can fight for in your school community. Those were 3 things on my mind, and thank you for everything everyone else has shared.
Yeah, I think as I was hearing you guys talk and everyone say something, I was like, okay, I have similar advice. I'll just say it in my words. I think that you have to humanize yourself in front of the people that you're standing in front of. Like, you have to tell them a little bit about who you are so that they know. And also you have to tell them, like, what are your goals with them? Like, what are the goals that you want to establish with them? Like, how do you want to grow together? Like, it's so that they know that you're doing this work, not because you want to get a paycheck, you know, because students will know when you're just there trying to collect a check. So you got to go in there and show them that you care about them. You know, you have to show them that you care for the work that you do and that you have the best intentions. And not just say it, but actually hold yourself accountable to it and actually demonstrate that you have the best intentions and you want all of your students to succeed. I think that, like, in math class, it's hard to always have everyone be engaged, and it's not everybody's favorite subject. Everybody does have a math brain. It just takes us time to develop and become confident with being in the math world. However, I think that one of the goals that I have in my classroom is I don't give them extra credit assignments. So I'm not just going to give you another worksheet for you to get credit, right? To boost your grade. What I ask them do is, like, okay, like, what project are you working on yourself, right? For yourself, that's out of the classroom. Like, it doesn't have to do with anything school related, but I have a lot of students who are artists in my class. And so I provide them with extra credit if somehow they can track how much effort they're putting into their work. So there's been moments where students put it, like, have them have a spreadsheet, and they want it to work out more, so they're keeping track of the times that they go to the gym, how much work they're doing, so how much weight they're benching, for example, and if they see the increments. I also have had students, they have some people who are on the cross country team, and so they collect data on how many miles they've ran. If they're able to run 50 miles by the end of the semester, I give them credit just because it works on having them habits of success, right? Then maybe they can't continue, or it's not like the math classroom has not served them in that way. I still want them to be successful, and if they want to, like, I just want them to build good habits and stay consistent with their goals. So that's one of the projects that I do. So I guess the advice would be to have projects that are continuing to help the students develop themselves. You know, like, it's not always all about, like, learning this math theorem or whatever. Maybe some things going on in their life, and I just want to inspire them to still want to hustle with the thing that, like, that they're passionate about, and whatever that may be. I think that the other advice would be to, like, allow the students to shape the classroom in whatever way they want instead in terms of the aesthetics. I'm focusing on the aesthetics just now. Like like I said, I have a lot of students who draw, and sometimes they get bored in my class and they're doodling and they end up just leaving the paper where they drew on, they leave it on the desk. I grab the drawing and I put it up on the walls. So if you walk into my classroom, there's a bunch of drawings made by students throughout the time that I've been there as a teacher. And I feel like it gives them a sense of owning the space. They come and then they suddenly see that they're drawing us up on the wall. They're like, oh, maybe it would have got thrown away. So just make it that so it's their space. At the beginning of the year, I like to do icebreakers, sort of that they know the style of teaching that I like to manage. I can be very, very strict or come off as being very strict. And so I want them to know that I have the best intention. So icebreakers and having them do little projects such as like their timeline or their shields, I think it's very important. Again, to like decorate your space. And I always play music when I allow them to like have independent work time. We have a classroom playlist that I play at the beginning when they're walking into the classroom. Um, I'm thinking about that when I try to shape it because I have 11th and 12th graders, I shape it so that they feel like they're going into college, right? Like, so that's what I'm preparing them for. Although I do push the idea that if that's not what you want, if you don't want to go to college, we have to get you into a union, a job that's going to get you paid well and start to look into those aspects of the world, right? But I make sure that they have time within when I have a final for them to have like a study session because most of our students don't know what studying means and they just think it means to sit down in front of a book and read and be like, okay, I'm gonna memorize this. When in fact it's about working together, right? Like that's one of the things that I push a lot is you have to work together, you have to talk to each other because well, one brain is not the best when you compare it to having a bunch of brains working on the same problems.
It was amazing. Thank you. Got some really good, like concrete ideas and really inspiring to hear about purpose and being part of collective movements for change is for me. I don't know. That is, I have to have that as that really feeds my purpose and my soul as an educator. I also wanted to, Kathy White, I think if she's still here, she is she's the visionary that created this conference and she knows Aaliyah from a long way back. And so Kathy, thank you for all your work and your work on the state level and your work with Teach for the Bay, really holding this space. She's been an amazing mentor for me as well. So yeah, I think we want to open it up for questions. If people can put questions in the chat, we'd love to hear, and it can be for one person or it can be for the whole panel. So what questions do you have for our panel?
I have a question.
Sure.
So here, I'll turn my video on. I'm like making Halloween bags for my kids. Oh, I don't even know if my video is working. Anyway, sorry. So I currently work in an after-school program with kids, and I'm new to this. So I'm in early childhood education classes at Kenyatta College, and this is my first time working in a classroom. We basically do homework help in the classroom, and then we go out and play in the playground. And I need help with classroom management. Like I don't know how to I don't know, like when we go to the cafeteria to eat, and then we go to the classroom, and some of the kids have homework, some of them don't, so that we have other activities for them. And like I don't know how to get the kids to listen without yelling. And my supervisors have said, like, you need to be strict, you need to raise your voice. And I don't do, like, that's hard for me. I don't like to do that. I don't Yeah, and also I don't speak Spanish, but most of the kids speak Spanish. So there's also like a language thing. Most of them speak English though, so we can understand each other. But I didn't grow up here. A lot of my coworkers grew up in that area and are familiar with the culture, and I'm feel like a fish out of water, basically. So I guess I just have questions of like, how do you get a sense of belonging and like trying to help these kids, even if you're not from a same cultural background, or yeah, I want to introduce, like, I have slowly introduced things like social emotional learning stuff and like doing a gratitude tree and things like that. But I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm kind of rambling now.
Yeah, it's a good question. Does anybody on the panel want to take that question? And Ms. Tish, I see your hand. We'll call on you next.
And by a ready to learn education, the
What was that?
That was someone was unmuted. So,
Oh.
So I mean, do people want? Does anyone want to take that on the panel? So I can also respond if you want.
The first thing I'd probably say you can do is maybe try to find a connection with them. You know, find something that you can actually sit down and maybe talk to, maybe one or two, maybe three. Just find something that they maybe like that you could just ramble about, talk about, maybe a cartoon, Pokemon cards, whatever they may be into. I know the language barrier might be there, but some of the same interests in the kids are there. So maybe try to make that connection there. Maybe tell them a little bit more about you, you know, share some stories about you, you know, where they may open up, and just be firm on what you want. Make sure that you being clear on what you want and what you need from them, and then provide them what they need from you. And it can go back and forth like that. Just basically being open to them, just seeing what they like, and start a conversation from there. I think it'll lead to a little bit more respect, lead more to a little bit more connection, a little more understanding.
Maybe, and I know this is kind of, you know, I taught community college, so I didn't work as long in the K through 12, but I really did get my start working at elementary schools and in after school programs like you. So your story resonated with me a lot. I think this is something I learned from Kathleen White. There's a power in silence and not using your voice. You will wear your voice out trying to yell. There was one teacher at the elementary school after school program I was working at who went to the extreme and brought like a bullhorn to class because they felt like if I just need to get louder, and that you do not want to get caught up in that battle. So one thing that I would do is, you know, they would just be going crazy in the classroom. I had a really rambunctious group of students, you know, lots of energy, lots of stuff that they were experiencing, and it was a safe space for them to just expel it out. So, you know, in those moments where they're maybe making fun of you, criticizing you, kind of saying hurtful things, like some little kids have made me go home and cry, to be honest. I'm being frank, you know, I'm like, dang, you know, but I come in and they'll just be going and I'll just be keeping track of time. I'm like, okay. Eventually they get tired. I'm like, all right, so we're going to sit silent for the 5 minutes of time you wasted in classroom. Maybe I won't say wasted, and then if they keep going, all right, now it's 6. That took some time, but eventually that worked for me. I don't know what strategy it is for you, but there's power in the look. There's power in the silence, because the yelling is a way of just, it'll burn you out. And everyone is yelling at them. People in the community, people on the bus, people at the store after school. So that's my one suggestion, is to, like, for yourself and for the students, finding a way, how can I still implement these sort of boundaries and spaces, you know, within the classroom, whether that be, we're going to have a 5-minute dance party or whatever, but also setting those boundaries for you. And I think the other people who actually teach in K through 12 should to talk, but that was my little tidbit.
Becca or Carlos, would you like to weigh in?
I can say a little thing. I think, yeah, all of the pieces around building relationships, finding shared interests, having kids feel seen by you, But in the like moment, I think there's some great readings just around like how to give instructions, how to make it real clear, like what you hope students are doing, you know, with their voices, how if they're in their seat, like just like, and it depends what age the students are, but making it real clear, what you're hoping the classroom is going to sound like, what it's going to feel like, what it's going to look like. And then starting by calling out kids who are doing what you want them to do. So don't put your like first energy towards like, you're not supposed to be there, you're not doing that. Like being like, I really appreciate these kids over here that are focused, these kids that are talking about what we're supposed to be talking about right now. I love the way that you're supporting each other, like those kinds of positivity. And generally most kids are like, a lot of kids hear that and like, oh yeah, I want to do that too, I want to get that positive feedback too. And then you'll have a couple kids for whatever reason are doing something else, and then I don't know, like people talk about like just like proximity, like going up close to that student. Sometimes they just like need you a little bit closer and they're like, okay, I'm gonna stop talking right now. But I feel like as a younger teacher, there were a few articles that I read or a few mentors that I talked to that I just like watched what they did, how they gave directions, then how they called out kids that were on task, then like how they moved their body so that they were closer to students, so that yeah, it's not just about like having your voice be as loud as possible. Like that's never, even if you got kids quiet that way, it's not going to be the classroom you want. So what are the other ways that are mainly based on like positive messaging as opposed to like forcing kids to be compliant? Yeah, but I think it's like a practice skill. And the fundamental part of it is having solid relationships. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it comes with what your style is. Like I think that you're gonna find it as you develop more and you're in front of the classroom, and you'll find the techniques that work for you. I can tell, I can share what works for me. I don't really work with a lot of young students. During the summer, I do work at a summer program, but I work with rising ninth graders. So that's the youngest I've worked with. And the things that I do is I'm kind of a little bit sarcastic. So like for the students that are talking, I'm like, oh, thank you for being quiet. I appreciate you for given me your attention. You're awesome. You're great. But then I kind of put them on blast like that. I don't know if that's the best like approach, but it works for me. And again, I think it comes down to the style of teaching and the sort of like relationship that you've already established with your students. I think that that's the key that has been said across is like building relationships with your students and just knowing what type of style, what type of like how do you feel like yourself, you know? How do you feel comfortable approaching said students? I also encourage to maybe build into your agenda to have icebreakers that like gets them to lose some of their energy. That's what we do during the summer. I have students for 4 hours back to back, and we establish some games that we do during in the middle of the lesson because they'll get off task. But that's just my advice.
That's all really great advice. Thank you. Miss Tish, did you still have your question?
Actually, it's not a question. I just wanted to thank you guys for this beautiful informational segment that we're having. I just really wanted to just share a few things as I was listening to you guys' story. Education was not, I didn't feel like it was my calling. My children attended Bessie Carmichael, and then I decided that I wanted to work there in the cafeteria as a monitor. The TK class was having some difficulties, and I started interacting with students, and then they asked me to be a para. So now I am a para, and I'm finishing my 66 and my 67, and I'm going to be a teacher. I just wanted to tell all you guys, I commend you all. The world is very different from when I was in school, and I'm 53 years old, and I have a 33, a 23, a 14, and a 12-year-old. The children need us. The community and their families need us. And it is very important to build relationships with the families because they come in and they watch. They see if you're interacting with their children. I work with PK now, and I love it. I wouldn't give it up for anything in the world. And I just want to tell all us educators and soon to be that we rock and we're the best and we will get this done. And we will make sure that all our children get it because that's our goal and it's in our heart. We don't do this for a paycheck. We do this because we love the babies, period. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tish. I appreciate
This is real quick. I just wanted to say thank you for the first question, because I think, you know, we all gave advice, but I think we all learned through making a lot of mistakes, and it took a lot of vulnerability and courage to be like, look, my classroom is this. And so, you know, it takes time. So I think be easy with yourself too, but also I just appreciated you opening that up, because a lot of teaching is sort of figuring things out and what works for you. So I think that started us off really great. So thanks for being so honest.
Thanks, Aaliyah. I saw one more question in the chat. If we missed your question, please put it in the chat again. But there's a question about how and whether you adjust your lesson plans to different kinds of learners.
I mean, I don't know, Tracy. I feel like I could start, but that's a lot. I mean, again, teaching community college, that's a lot of what we do. I mean, our classrooms are, but again, at the end of the day, some of the strategies you're using in the K through 12 are very much the same as a community college classroom. So for me, you know, I think there's overlap. One of the things that I do is not treat each classroom the same, like and I guess if you're in K through 12, it would have to be periods, you know, really trying to utilize assessment assignments in the beginning to assess where each class is at, what they're doing. One class might really be, you know, showing more proficiency in this, and that doesn't have to be through testing. It could be through interactive exercises or other things. So sometimes it's extra work, but those subtle adjustments and not emphasizing grades, although grades and testing are a reality, the grades really do a psychological number on the students. So for me, that would be my advice really early on as I'm meeting the students, trying to assess where each classroom is at and doing my best to implement systems to sort of track the progress of the students in ways that are manageable for me. And then trying to implement small things within the classroom to sort of try to cater to those needs, and then trying to connect the students who might need some extra help with the resources that they need on campus. So I'm not doing all of that work. So I guess the advice is sort of continued assessments and lots of positive reinforcements, and that understanding that progress looks different for each student and for each classroom. So I've had students who used to come in and maybe never written more than a page in the same classroom as students who are, achieving from UC Berkeley or something, right? So it's not about making the student who's coming in, who's never written a page, feel as if they can't, or they're not good enough, or they have to go further. But it's about empowering students to realize that your best is your best. And that's all I want from you, is your best.
Anybody else want to add to that question?
Yeah, I think that I would agree. I think that when I think about my lessons, I focus on having the most points of accessibility for my students, not just one way of learning. So I like to have projects embedded. Sometimes I'll still do the normal thing of like just giving them a test to see where they're at. But I also have projects where they can obtain credit back for as a substitution for the mastery assignment that they didn't perform well in. During my lessons, I make sure that My students all have a notes packet that they're following along as I'm going ahead throughout the lesson. So they just take notes. Everybody's required to color code. I think that some of the students hate it and they're like tired of me telling them, okay, color code. But when they take the test, they know that they need to color code at the same time, just so that it doesn't so it doesn't like out one person over the other because one person needs to color code and one doesn't. I have everybody do it just as a common practice. Also, I think that just being able to have some sort of manipulative, I think it works well for my geometry class. Like lately, we were thinking about area and the volume, and I have had them do cuttings and finding the area of different shapes as they cut them and use measurements and just having lessons that are engaging in different forms so that they're just not just sitting there listening to you talk over and over again. And something that I've been putting into practice is this thing of like vertical teaching or vertical learning. I have whiteboards around the classroom, and whenever they're going to take a test, they they have this thing called stations. They have to stand up and do the problem on the whiteboard first before they can transfer it over to their paper. That gives me an opportunity for them to have conversations and me to walk around and listen to what they're talking about. Just so that they're using the appropriate language and I know what the thinking is behind. And I think that that has helped a lot because then it transitions over to when they have to take the test by themselves. They have already talked it through so with the students. I also my main focus is for them to like master the concept. So I give a lot of opportunities for them to get their grades up. We have a lot of quizzes, but at the end, I provide them with all the quizzes that we took throughout the unit, and then they get to take it again, and then that'll like average out their grades. So just making sure that you provide a lot of opportunities for our students to be successful. I think that would be what I have to say.
I love that. And I think it connects with what Aaliyah was talking about with grading. Grading is I mean, I think the whole system of grading has to be reworked if we're really going to transform education. But it also reminds me of what one of you was saying, I can't remember, but when you're told you're supposed to do something, you can change it, right? So you have to give grades. So how do you give grades? Is it about learning or is it about grades? Because grades are punitive and penalizing, and they are often demotivating for students. But if you're going to have to give grades, you give students all these opportunities. And if it's about the learning, then provide revision opportunities, right? Because then that's how people can learn.
I was going to add that it kind of spills over between what we just said and what we're saying about how do we manage kids in the classroom, when they're a little too excited, they don't want to settle in. And also, how do you teach kids of different levels? I've been teaching in classrooms for a long, long time and different groups. I've been everything from 6 weeks to a senior in high school. So I've hit all the gamuts, all the subjects. And in several different states and countries. And so I'm like, my norm is for when the kids are too loud, I will talk really quiet to the first people in the first group. And then everybody was like, wait, what is she? And I'll say something that gets them like engaged so that other people are like, oh my God, what are we missing? And that works for some classes. Also, in what do you do when you teach like kids of different learning abilities? I love using student teachers. So I will have the students help each other. So they will, not only are they kind of taking that pressure off of me to try to juggle all over the place, but also it reinforces to them the subject at hand. They're learning through teaching. And sometimes they learn better through their peers because the peer might see it from the perspective that I'm not seeing it to help them. So so that's how I kind of do that, and it's been very successful. And the sarcasm, that's my native fluent language from my upbringing. And sarcasm works really, really well, especially the older grades, but it works well. They all understand it and they know how I am. And so I've been very successful with all that. And just be true and honest. Be yourself. Don't put on a hat when you come in and you're like, oh, I'm a teacher now. Don't, you just got to be yourself. And because kids can spot, smart, they can spot all that. So that's been for me.
Thanks, Renee. Really good stuff. I think being authentic is key. I'm going to pass it back over to Jarek. See you. Let's see. So, Jarek, do you have more questions?
Oh, I thought you said Gerald.
Oh,
Gerald and
I was wondering for a second, like, was you talking to me?
Okay, sorry about that. Well, I feel like if there aren't any more questions in the chat, any closing remarks that folks have, as we close out this conference, 3 days of learning from each other and thinking about, how do we stay in this work and stay inspired. And when we were planning the conference, we were thinking about this. I forget how it came about, Tracy, but we were thinking about like this idea of fire as a metaphor, right? How do we stay fired up about the work, inspired to keep going and to pull people along with us, so that we have more like Carlos's and Gerald's and, people coming back to their communities really committed and invested to continue doing this work. And so with that, any closing words that our panelists would like to share, thinking about that metaphor of igniting the fire for change and transformation?
I think it's really important to find sources of inspiration for yourself. What practices do you have in your life? I know Gerald talked about sports. For me, it was dance, and also replenishing yourself so that you can be present. Maybe sometimes that's as simple as making sure I make my lunch the day before so I have food to eat, making sure that no matter what, I go to the restroom. I know it seems silly, but like those are the things that will sustain you over the years, right? But then I think on a bigger scale, with this esteemed group of people who are teachers, first of all, thank you. But this is a time, as there are protests going on right now, where teachers are needed more than ever. And I feel like the story that teaching is, the reality is there are fewer people going into teacher positions, but we need to be teachers more than ever. So if you are getting that call to do it, then follow through, because the young people are depending on us to be present and to do this work. It's some of the most rewarding work that you can do. It doesn't have to look linear or one way, which I think my career sort of exemplifies. And then lastly, to bring the community into your classroom to help you. If you need supplies, you need after school programs, the parents come through because they respect and see the work that you're doing. So take care of yourself so that you can be present. And if you need help or assistance, bring in the community, and they will oftentimes exceed the expectations of anything that you had.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And before, I just want to catch a piece of what you're saying and bring it together with what Becca was saying. I think if those of you who are joining us and you're not sure about teaching as a career, I think it doesn't, Aaliyah, you were saying it doesn't have to be linear. And Becca was saying we have to fight for change, right? And Gerald was saying how, we're as parents, we're contending with how to make this sustainable, and we should not be doing work that depletes us so much that we cannot show up for our families. But collectively, we have to make teaching sustainable, and it can be. it can be sustainable. There are other places in the world where it is, and there's even other schools and districts around the country where it is. So I think we have to like really commit to collectively fighting for it to be work where we can go to the bathroom, where we can have energy and resource ourselves and our communities afterwards. Otherwise, yeah, why would it not be those things? But those are things that we can demand, but we need to do that together, and we need to shape it together. And so we need all of you here to join us in that work, because it can be. We have to keep our imaginations open to all the possibilities of what this work could be, because it's already amazing, but imagine a more amazing education system where educators are not depleted and where we're getting the resources and supports that we need. Okay, with that, I want to transition it to Gerald's. Yeah.
Can you repeat the question for me one more time, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Just any final words you want to share with the community as we close out?
The final words that I want to share is find a balance. Be open. Have an open heart. I mean, find a balance. Have an open heart. Be you. Find your purpose. And I feel like working with students, you always got a hand in the future. You always got a hand in the future and how it is going to continue on. But like for myself, I was not looking to be an educator, but as I've grown, I've gotten more inspired. So that inspiration has carried over to I know some of the students that I worked with before, and I'm guessing. So, for example, I got one student that I work with. She was in the 3rd grade. She's coming back, and she's a counselor. A counselor. She's working with some of the smaller students, and I asked her on a daily, how does it feel? Like how does this make you feel working with students? And you once was a student, and she basically said it's kind of fulfilling. And I have the same. I agree with that. It's very fulfilling. So, like I said, working in my community is even more fulfilling. So, I'm gonna close the panel with that.
Thank you, Gerald. Becca?
A couple things. One piece that I just feel like I kind of said, but I've been active in our union, our Oakland Education Association, since before I was officially a teacher. And I think just one thing about the power we have, the biggest group of unionized workers in this country are teachers. And so teachers unions had this huge impact on elections, on policy, on funding for schools, on it's just like a massive amount of power. And it's a lot to be a teacher and also be active in those spaces. But I think that's part of what feeds me and part of the power in the work that we do, or at least for me has been. And the other piece that I just want to say is partially, I think those of us who stick with this work long term, it's like because of the meaning, but it's because of the joy. It's because of the laughter. It's because of the relationships. There's lots of this job that's just fun. And making sure that you do have time, like, I don't know, playing like just games with kids that aren't necessarily about learning or your contact area, but it's just about us all laughing together, us all listening to music together, us creating moments like that. Because yeah, that also is a huge part of what sustains me. And it's not all hard and it's not all unsustainable. There's a lot of it that you're just like, I just had so much fun with kids today. And that feels like a blessing too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Becca. Carlos, final words?
I think all I have to say is that I think that everyone who is here, like you're here already because you have that sense inside of you that you want to be a teacher, right? Like there's that initial like internal drive already. If anything, I hope that what you took from this conversation here today is that, just that extra motivation, and always, I think this is important to always check in with other educators, right? Tap in and see how their day is going. Like, talk about what's going on in your classroom, and then that releases some of the stress that builds up from being in the classroom, because, well, you're not just a teacher, you're not just going in and teaching a lesson, you're also like someone's friend. Maybe you don't have a friend at school, and you're that one person that the student wants to talk to and share like, now they're applying to college, or they're going to apply to this job. And just hearing the stories of where the students are going after they graduate from high school, and seeing them walk the stage. And we have a thing at our school where we do decision day, and I think that that's one of the days that, like, I really enjoy. Like, I look forward to that, especially because this group of seniors that I work with, I see them from 11th grade to 12th grade. It's not a long time, but I really get to know who these kids are, and just seeing them on the stage and sharing where they're gonna go, what they're gonna do next with their life. I think that that is in itself inspiring, because, and that continue to like reset that internal fire within me, to be like, okay, like, there's an end result, and I see the outcome here, and they're going on to do better and greater things. And just always knowing that you touched somebody's life, you like shifted some way or another. That I think that that's why it's also, this job is so important and so valued, and you need to take it very seriously, is because you're working with youth, and regardless of whether or not you know it, you're changing the way they think, you're changing the way they are. And so always keep that in the back of your mind. Think about how the teachers in your life have shaped you, and know that you want to do this work because you're in it for the love, you're in it for the joy, and you want to see our kids be successful and be, be better than us. That's what it is. But yeah.
Thank you so much, Carlos. I know I always tell people I get to give out love all day. Are you kidding me? I love this work, so it does feel like a blessing for that reason, that very reason. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us. There was a question about certificate of attendance. I'm going to drop a couple of things in the chat as we close out. Just want to express gratitude to all the panelists. Out of your busy schedule, you came and offered this wisdom because you're invested in this work. So thank you, all of you, for your time and energy. I'm gonna post a link in the chat, which is our certificate of completion. Those of you who are coming here and need that for your course. Also, we're gonna put in the chat an evaluation. If you can spend just a few minutes giving us feedback on this session, so that the Teach for the Bay conference team can continue to improve our offerings. And then as we close out, this is our final activity for this session. Just want to thank you, Tracy, Burt, and Kathleen White, and Annie Chan, and the conference team, and all of the folks from around the Bay Area region who contributed to this conference, other community colleges, CSUs, and of course, most importantly, the people who were doing this work for all the students at community colleges around the Bay Area who are committing their lives to education. So appreciate being a part of this beloved community, and we'll see you next year for our 5th year Teach for the Bay. Any other closing words, Tracy, as we close out?
I think you did it. You did it great. I think you said everything. So I'll put the eval in. I don't know if someone else did already, but here's the evaluation. And then the certificate's in the chat as a download, or you can use the link that Jerica sent. But I just, maybe for one 30 second time, think about one thing that you want to take away from this workshop. What do you want to remember if you just could choose one thing? There were so many, but just one thing, because I know for me, that is important.
This is Tatiana, and I want to pursue this further. You are an amazing group of people, teachers. I feel like I am finally finding something that I've been looking for a long time. So thank you all. Thank you, every panelist in this session, and to everyone who contributed to this conference. I actually, I've been in it for all 3 days. I took a lot from it, and I want to pursue this further. Thank you.
Thanks, Tatiana. If anybody else would like to speak before you go, we're inviting you to share in the chat or share. We'll keep open for a couple minutes.
I want to say thank you for you guys' workshop. It was inspiring. For one, I'm born and raised San Francisco, live in San Francisco, and also a student at City College this semester. So thank you guys for all of the information that you guys provided. And for one, keep up the good work, right? And I'll see you guys next year. I did all 3 days and I got, I see your hands, yay. And I got a lot of information. The reason why I'm in school this semester, I'm in the core ECE classes because I'm opening my own childcare. But I was talking, as I was speaking to my fiance, I was telling him that, you know, I've been working with kids for over 20 years. I've probably mentored over 300 kids in the Bay Area. And now this is my new journey to deal with the little ones. So I was telling him that this is inspiring. This may be a road to, you know, something bigger and better. I also heard you, Tracy, and you started off working in a preschool. So I was telling him, like, you know, this may be my calling as well. I've had a different career and I'm transitioning back to working with kids. Thank you all for your information and your experience with working with children. And once again, keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
I also want to thank everybody also for their time. I think one of the things that stood out to me was the fact that you guys really love what you do. I think without even saying it, I think it's just a reminder, you know, like I heard you guys say, like, it's not about the money, and it's what I hear. Because I am extending, I'm not a teacher yet, but I am graduating from Gavilan College this year, and I plan to attend San Jose State University. But I've heard those comments in the background, like, no, you shouldn't be a teacher. You should be an accountant. That you're not gonna get far in that. But that's just I feel like that's my calling. That's what I love. I always felt like as a little kid too, like I'm gonna be a teacher. I love teaching people. I love, you know, collaborating with people and meeting new people. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I enjoyed all 3 meetings. It was very, very engaging.
Oh,
Good
thanks,
to
Sharon.
see you, Sharon.
Hi, Ms. Stein.
Right. Well, I think it's about time for us to finish. I just want to share my deep gratitude for the 4 of you for sharing this time with us. It was very inspiring, and it's just so helpful to be reminded of the deeper purpose, and you're all so authentic and so inspiring as educators. So thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thanks for all the work that you guys do.
Thank you.